Welcome back to another episode of Lost and Down. It is the new year. Happy New Year, Walty. How the hell are you?
Happy New Year to you too. I'm on top of the world. We were just a moment ago watching Christian Wilkins' introductory press conference with the Raiders. Man's looking fly. He's got the Raiders scream down at the start of his press conference. I could not be happier right now, Steven. The Raiders are going unscored upon.
I feel like I'm taking a page out of your book, and I am the man who just likes to watch the world burn, but I'll leave it at that for the time being, because we're actually going to be able to talk about it here pretty quickly. But Syracuse is out, probably officially out of the NCAA tournament. I didn't say this on Monday, but shout out to all my North Carolinians out here, officially a part of the sports gambling degenerate world. Welcome. I was talking with Dylan a little bit earlier. He's like, the amount of free bets that I have here. I did forget to tell him when he comes up here, I got a couple other sports books to help him out, get some more free money here. But
that first month,
38th state now. Only
12
really? Left. Yeah.
Oh, let's go. I mean, it's just that first month. You remember what it was like? It was like Christmas every day. You were finding excuses to bet at 3 in the morning. Yeah.
We had football on too. Like they got March Madness, which I think is that's a pretty good timing as well. But like playoff football, last regular season week, like 17 and 18, then you got playoffs. But yeah, March Madness might be better. Like that's like every day. They gotta have multiple like boosts of some sort.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, I'd be the moron too. 16 games day one, I'd probably parlay them all. Like, hey, let's live a little. Let's get a little crazy out here. I mean, that's what you got to do, right? For your first $5 risk-free bet, let's get rich.
I wouldn't parlay all of them, but I would parlay the spread of every 13-4, 12-5, 11-6 matchup. Okay. Something about that middle ground, you know?
But like, notice how a couple years ago, I'd love to know the numbers. I'm not like well-versed enough to know off the top of my head, but I felt like the 12-5s, there was like a 15-year stretch to your point where the 12s were almost 50-50. And then everybody started getting on that train. And as soon as that happened...
Funny how that works.
Yeah, the 5s are winning every year now, and it's a 13-4 problem.
And it's a 13-4 problem for sure. I mean, there was a couple years, too, where it felt like the 15-2 matchup needed eyes on it, too. I remember Michigan State going down. I want to say OSU actually went down in one of those games as
Oral
well.
Roberts. Yeah,
Oral Roberts, yep.
Yep. We were 1 win away from Oral Roberts playing Lipscomb. And I was like rooting for that so hard, just like watch the world burn kind of thing. But we're now at a point where Ohio State hasn't, if I'm not mistaken, won a March Madness game since that. And thank God this year, with all the peace and love to Chris Holtmann, he gone. And as soon as he's gone now, we have the Buckeyes are winning every single game. I mean, we're playing Iowa as we speak. And if they win, that puts them at 20-12 when they were dead in the water a month ago. I mean, there's realistic belief that if they win this game and can find a way to stun Illinois, they're going to get in. And I didn't think there was a chance in hell that could happen.
You never know. Like we always talk about, if it's football, basketball, baseball, hockey, you never want to play that team that has their back against the wall, almost has their back against the wall with absolutely nothing to lose. Like that's why the Buckeyes have been playing great. You have that switch in energy, which we see all the time when these new head coaches come in, interim coaches are coming in, and then all of a sudden it's like a page flips and it's a whole new chapter of a team here. They got nothing to lose, and they also have nothing but confidence right now. That's a dangerous combination going into March.
Absolutely is a dangerous combination. On top of that, too, though, is Ohio State, where they're not a blue blood. They're not a top 20 team or program in the country right now.
Football school.
But there's a lot of freaking talent on that roster. It's a team that should be in the March Madness every single year without fail. So, you know what? Maybe the talent's actually getting coached well now by the Diebler brother, my boy, John Diebler, best Buckeye, at least my favorite growing up. His brother's coaching him. He's got a chance. If they go to the tournament now, you think about keeping the guy.
I'm more of a Costa Kufis guy myself.
That's fair. That's
you like that?
One. I like that callback. You like that?
No, but OSU is one of those programs that can just their name sells themselves. They're not. I was obviously just kind of poking fun. They're more than a football school. Like their basketball is ridiculous. I know they have other sports that are really good. I think men's and women hockey. I don't think their baseball team's too shabby either. But when it comes to are they a football or basketball school, OSU is surprisingly right there in the middle. Of course, they skew a little bit more towards the football end, but they got some ballers. They got
Oh,
some
when we
ballers
were
on their end.
growing up, that Greg Oden, Mike Conley, David Lighty, William Buford, Deshaun Thomas, you can go on for
Evan
days.
Turner.
Evan Turner. I mean, there was just stud after stud, and maybe not NBA kind of guys, but the guys you'd see go to Europe right after and do really well. And then what? The TBT tournament? Buckeyes were always
Dude,
great
those
because
are
those
so
guys.
fun.
Yeah, and
Those are
those
so
guys are
fun. That's
just now gone.
that's all I have to really look forward to when it comes to Syracuse basketball because it's just nostalgia in a nutshell. And shout out to my boy Eric Devendorf because he was my first ever sports interview, if you remember from back in the day.
You killed that interview too.
Dude, I was shaking in my little girl boots
It's a
the
little
entire time.
intimidating. I mean, I think the reason that we got lucky because while we were at Ohio Media School, we really kind of got thrown to the ringer, and I was nervous for that first one with Jack Sawyer because I'm like, this guy's a 5-star. He's going to my school. He could be like a real game changer. And then as soon as you meet him, you're like, this is an 18-year-old kid. Like he's
Yeah.
just a human being, and it like did so much for me to like calm me down in interviews that now, I mean, I'll be shell shocked with like really big names, but not the names that I mean we're really going to be interviewing right now.
I don't know. I think we're getting JJ Watt loaded up on here, but that's really neither here nor there. Let's get into the last little couple bites of free agency. Everything that we missed here on Monday, which I feel like we nailed a good amount on here, but we had a couple stragglers coming in late here on Tuesday, leading into Wednesday. And my God, now everything's becoming official post 12 p.m., 4 p.m. on Wednesday. But to keep the trends going, we got the running backs continue to get paid where it seemingly seems like they are all off the board here. We got Derrick Henry heading to Baltimore on a 2-year deal. We got Aaron Jones staying within the division, going to the Minnesota Vikings, I want to say in a 1-year deal. And then right when we thought Joe Mixon was actually going to be released, Cincinnati ended up keeping him and trading him to the Houston Texans just a few hours after the Bengals had signed Zach Moss on a 2-year deal from the Indianapolis Colts.
We see that happen every now and then where a team almost puts out into the world, we're going to move off this player with no expectations. People are going to call. But then you have Nick Caserio down in Houston, obviously sees something he likes, give them a call. And it's a home run if you're a Bengals fan because now not only do you get a pick you weren't expecting, you don't have that dead cap on you. So you're thrilled with that if you're a Bengals fan. And that's like the only move that Houston's done that I haven't really been in love with so far.
Well, and we didn't talk about it, but that also led to an extension here with Joe Mixon. The numbers that there's looking like is it's a contract that has 13 mil in fully guarantees with 9 million in 2024 this year and 4 million in 2025. He also has a pregame roster bonus of $1 million total in 24. High number, but it creates a very incentive based contract, which I got to bookmark this one because I'm waiting for that to come out because week 18, I'll be looking at Sir Joe Mixon about how can I get my props to win here.
Dameon Pierce is a similar back the way I see it. And he struggled in Houston because it's kind of that Kyle Shanahan tree offense where it's a lot of that zone running attack. And Joe Mixon was kind of he's an old school guy. Tell me where to run, and I'm going to run very hard to that spot.
Yeah, trust me, we know. I think that's why he's leaving Cincinnati. We saw some holes that he was missing.
So that, like, now he's going to go to where he's expected to have excellent vision. He's supposed to still have that juice. And I didn't feel like in the last 2 years, we saw the Joe Mixon that we saw early in his Cincinnati tenure.
Yeah, like to your point, Nick Caserio doing this is such a huge favor for Cincinnati. They were ready to eat, I want to say around like 6 mil in dead cap, maybe 8 mil in dead cap. But that number moves to just a little bit south to 3 now because of this trade. Now, granted, I don't know how much traction maybe the GMs were hearing, if it's group chats, if it's just, I don't know, maybe there's a GM Reddit that people are all looking at. There had to have been something where they didn't feel comfortable enough that he was going to clear waivers and end up being a Houston Texan. And then you go and I think you overpay for him.
Yeah. If you
Grossly
pay anything,
overpaying.
it feels like you're overpaying. It's just fascinating too, because I feel like this is a good way to bring up the Derrick Henry signing in Baltimore, because you got to see what this organization, which is just so good this time of year at being patient, letting the board fall to them, and they get Derrick Henry for scraps. I mean, this is not off or very far off these deals that you're getting for Zach Moss, that you're getting for other kind of journeyman running back at this stage. And Derrick Henry he had life in the legs last year. I know that he's got a lot of hits on that body now, but going to a place like Baltimore, he was born to wear that all
Yes,
black uniform. He looks good.
dude. I've never seen, and I'm sure we've said this in the past, so I can probably eat crow on it, but a jersey player combo never fit more perfectly than Derrick Henry. A dark, cold Sunday night in November playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Him and TJ Watt locking up at the line of scrimmage. TJ will win one. Derrick will win one. TJ will win one. It just, I can see it. And obviously, we're going to
13 to
see it come to
9 game.
fruition here.
13
Oh,
to
yeah.
9. You have
Look
Al
at,
Michaels in the booth wanting to kill himself.
yeah, well, at least we're not looking at Taylor Swift. Or some Swift comment, of course, he's going to make.
Meanwhile, you have Kirk Herbstreit. I like Kirk, by the way. I know a lot
I
of people
love Kirk on Thursday. Whoa. There's Kirk Herbstreit hate on the Thursday night broadcast?
There's a lot of Kirk Herbstreit hate. People think that he hasn't, I guess, put enough time in the NFL, and it's very clear that, and that's fine. He's a college guy first and foremost, but he does a good job. He does.
But he's a
work
football
hard.
guy.
He is, but I was more or less just, he'd be talking about his dog in this whole time. That was my long circular way. Al's miserable, and then Kirk's just like, check out the puppy, guys. So I mean, hey,
That's
worse
what
things.
I want. That's what I want. And the biggest thing I love is there's a ton of people like myself who are very huge NFL fans and not really that polished, if polished at all, about college football. So him bridging the gap for these. Now, sure, he gets a little Collinsworth-esque when he's like, this 7th-round pick from Georgia is blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get that. But he's able to kind of bridge that gap of NFL guys not really knowing about these college guys. But at the end of the day, the dude knows tape. He knows technique. He knows ball. That's all you want to look for. And let's be real. Way better than Tony Romo, because that dude's been getting a lot of hate.
People in college, the biggest critique for him is that everybody thinks he's a homer, but then you ask Buckeye fans, and half of Buckeye fans hate his guts because they're convinced he hates the Buckeyes. So it's the fact that no one seems to like him because he doesn't like your team. That is just it's like the textbook sign. This guy is very good at his job, and he calls it down the middle. That you are getting, everybody's being miserable. I love Kirk Herbstreit.
There's just no in between. You're either Lou Holtz and the most biased to the bones, or you're Mark May in OSU's eyes. Like, what the fuck? That dude is, that's why I love him. He's so unbiased. That's the number one thing you should be looking for. If you want bias, listen to local radio. Listen to local people speak. If you want it on a national scale, guess what? More times than not, it's not going to happen. And if we do, we're going to grow him. Fuck you, Skip Bayless.
I had forgotten about Mark May. I feel like I had finally washed him from my brain.
Fuck, I'm sorry.
Bleached him out of my brain. I was a happy man right now, and now I'm all upset again. So you know what? Well,
that's on me.
I mean, the Buckeyes beat him 73-0 when he was at school. That's why he hates him. Just want to throw that out there, all you Pitt
Where do you even
fans.
go?
Pitt. Yep. That's the thing. They're not even rivals. He just got his feelings hurt that Ohio State bullied him with a bunch of walk-ons right up the middle, right over him. Joke. You know what? That good. See ya. There's a reason he ain't nowhere to be found right now either. But Steven, there is one more running back we were obviously talking about earlier. I have to ask you. We know you were very upset with the Packers for not retaining Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones then follows that up the next day. He signs a 1-year deal, pretty cheap deal with Minnesota. Is it safe to say you're not going to hold any grudges against Aaron Jones here?
I am absolutely not going to hold a singular grudge. This isn't Saquon going to the Eagles. This isn't Pat Queen going to the Steelers, which we'll get to. This is a guy who was done dirty, and I don't know if I knew this information prior to our podcast on Monday, but a lot of these news stories are coming out that Aaron Jones was asked to take a 50% pay cut. Now, I don't know at what point during the contract negotiations this pay cut or what this number was supposed to look like at that 50%. It's originally supposed to be due, I want to say 17, was able to get that down to 12. So if it's 50% of 12, that's 6. If it's 50% of 17, it's 8.5. That's 8.5, I get it. But if you're asking this dude to continually go down, he says no because this dude he's done the Tom Brady treatment where he takes pay cuts to make sure he stays in a place that he loves to be able to potentially try to fight for a Super Bowl. In return, you cut him because you're pulling a Leonardo DiCaprio, except the age is 30. You're cutting him right away. And I like it. You did this to yourself, Green Bay. Looking at you, Brian Gutekunst. I hope, and I've already said this publicly, and I'm not staying off this soapbox. I hope, and I cannot wait for Aaron Jones to take it to Green Bay for 2 weeks next year. And I hope he does. He's going to get the AP treatment. Fuck anyone on Minnesota who is smoking us. Oh, it's AP going for $150? Dude's a legend. I don't care. That's pretty sick to witness myself. He is getting that treatment. I hope he dismantles the 28th ranked rushing defense that Green Bay was posting up on the field last year. In the years previous, they've been horrible. Absolutely. And what sucks even more, Green Bay is expected to re-sign A.J. Dillon too. Just
I did see that right before we started. It looked like a 2-year conversation that they were talking about.
I didn't see numbers. I just saw it on Sleeper that they're expected to bring him back. But no, all of the Showtime, Aaron Jones. He's got a 1-year deal. Hopefully that means that he'll be gone out of Minnesota after 1 year. After 2, I'm like, all right, dude, this guy's it's fucking get over it, man. It's the past. Not really, but just do what you do, Aaron Jones. I hope you embarrass the hell out of Green Bay. But man, I feel bad because now they don't have a quarterback and they're actually looking kind of solid. JJ, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones.
And Sam Darnold. We'll get to him too. There's quite a few moves this last week about the veteran backup quarterback market. Who knows though, because I still think, little teaser, Sam Darnold might actually be getting starting reps next year. Like deliberately.
We talked about how Joe Mixon ended up being traded to the Houston Texans, but they did not stop there because they also added Minnesota Vikings Danielle Hunter to a 2-year, $49 million contract. 48 of said contract is guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Isn't that weird? They just left $1 million out there that they're like, oh, you got to earn that. Got to really earn that one then, Danielle.
For some reason, when I hear that, I just get like the scene from Scarface. He's like, don't fuck me, Tony. That's $1 million, dude. I'm not going to, like, you already fucked yourself.
Like, come on, man. Like, $1 million here? Like, I want to know what the incentive is that he has to hit that. But, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, we're talking about a team 2 years ago had no pressure on the quarterback. This is as excited as I could be. This, to me, with Stroud on his rookie deal, you make aggressive moves in free agency because you know this is your best opportunity to win a Super Bowl. It's crazy to say that about a Houston Texans team that was picking second and third last year. There's a real chance if CJ Stroud grows even more that the Texans can do what the 2021 Bengals did and go to the Super Bowl next year.
You also have to remember, I know we're only a few weeks removed from it, but this is a quarterback, one of the few quarterbacks it feels like, at least over the past few years, who isn't losing their offensive coordinator after an amazing year. So yeah, I'm more than expecting no sophomore slump. I'm expecting another big jump for CJ Stroud. I love that Danielle Hunter's leaving Minnesota because that means he's out of my division, which I love. What I don't understand is why they let him walk. All this dude did was turn 29, had career high in sacks with 16 and a half, combo, solo, tackle for losses, and forced fumbles. I mean, this dude had to single-handedly be the heartbeat for the Minnesota Vikings defensively outside of maybe Harrison Smith, right? It doesn't make sense to me. Minnesota is just in this weird little lull right now where they are like they have been successful and they're like, now let's get rid of people because they moved on from Daniil Hunter, so Darius Smith, Dalvin Cook, now Kirk Cousins has been gone, and then we were trading away Stephon Diggs prior to the JJ resurgence here, or JJ being drafted. It's just stars cannot stay in Minnesota.
They've struggled too, and a big part of it just feels like they're always in purgatory, where at no point, even with Kirk Cousins the past few years, did it feel like they went all in or really was making a push. They got lucky with things like Justin Jefferson falling in their lap and turning out the way they did, but it's not like they were aggressive. They moved off Stephon Diggs in that period right after they got Kirk Cousins. It feels like a team that really doesn't have a direction. And even looking at their team right now, they brought in a few intriguing defensive free agents, but at the end of the day, it's still a defense that the reason they were effective last year is because Brian Flores blitzed the hell out of everybody, and at some point, teams are going to figure that out. They don't have a quarterback. The Vikings, to me, they're a 7-ish win team next year, and maybe that's why they're letting go to Daniil Hunter, and they're saying, finally, we're going to actually rebuild the proper way and try to get a quarterback through the draft and, kind of do what Houston's doing, win while they're on the rookie deal.
I mean, and it always makes you kind of scratch your head. It's like, okay, what's the longevity of Kevin O'Connell? But quite frankly, if you look at that offense and what they're able to do post Kirk Cousins, like the dude is sustainable, right? I think that he's been able to buy himself at least another year, maybe another year now, because Sam Darnold might be that starting quarterback. They don't have a quarterback and they're loaded. They understand that, but he was able to keep that team afloat and in the playoff push up until the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I like Kevin O'Connell there, but man, they've been doing him dirty. But we'll see how the draft is. Maybe they just keep hitting. Jordan Addison was an absolute stud. Maybe they just find somebody else on the defensive end to make an impact instantly. Then all of a sudden, they could just be one of those scrappy teams that's just kind of floating around 500 all year. And then all of a sudden they go on a 2-3 game win streak to get in the playoffs.
And they've done a great job, too, of keeping that offensive line together. And the offensive line is all, brought in-house. Like, they're homegrown. There's a lot to be excited about on that side of the ball. I'm with you. I don't think there's a chance Kevin O'Connell is out after this next year. First of all, because I think he's too good of a coach and he'll do too well. But even if they didn't, it's like, give the guy a proper chance. He's too good of a coach. Steelers and Patrick Queen, 3 years, $41 million. Patrick Queen stays in division. And Steven, I'm sure you had seen at some point this week, Mike Tomlin, apparently right after Patrick Queen was drafted, offended Patrick Queen by telling him, "You're not a Raven." And I don't know what it was that Mike Tomlin saw in him that I feel like it was you should be with us. You shouldn't be with them. And here, 4 years later, Patrick Queen signs a deal. And unique, Steven, because this is a franchise that's really struggled with linebacker of late. So what did you make about what did you make of this deal?
No, I really got to look at the numbers because it always makes you kind of scratch your head. But at the same time, it's Baltimore, a team that pumps out front seven like no other. So I guess that's probably why they're not too worried about it. And then you realize that they're more bought into Roquan Smith than Patrick Queen here. But Patrick Queen has been putting up solid numbers. I think looking for that, he plays a little bit of both, doesn't he? He got a little middle. He'll play a little bit of the edge. They need somebody like that to complement not only TJ Watt, but how am I already blanking on the other dude? Alex Highsmith, Charlotte boy, North Carolina, rep up, baby. So they have somebody else to kind of help out in that back part of that front seven. So I like it a lot. And it's Mike Tomlin and that defense. They're going to get the absolute most out of him. So another great move for Pittsburgh, of course.
Now, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, because I like the deal too, I kind of just told you, but he was declining before Roquan Smith got to Baltimore. So you kind of have to wonder, are we still going to get that high level of play we saw last year? Or are we going to see the kind of third-year struggles that he had before that? And this is a
Miles
team.
Jack type deal.
Maybe. And speaking of Miles Jack, I'm so happy you brought it up because I forgot to even list him what I'm about to say. But since Ryan Shazier, it feels like the Steelers keep taking swings at linebacker and they keep striking out. Deion Bush was a total bust. Joe Schobert they brought in was actually pretty good in Jacksonville and Cleveland. Yeah, and looked terrible in Cleveland or in Pittsburgh, excuse me. And then couldn't keep Robert Spillane. Miles Jack, like you said, he struggled there. So I'm interested on that. If I'm gonna be skeptical, that's the reason why. But they also dumped Deontay Johnson. I mean dumped because he went to Carolina. Man, they're
I don't get
so
it.
petty with their wide receivers, the Steelers. Everybody that they
Well,
trade, they send to the gutter.
they do, and I love it. And what you have on here is Pittsburgh is petty with their diva wide receivers. Deontay's having the most diva wide receiver on their roster at that point,
I
so
mean,
it
that's
kind of
fair.
threw me off. I mean, this is a guy that was getting a lot of praise going into last year, right? Yes, he didn't score. I don't think he scored any touchdowns the previous season. He finally got some under his belt this year with a little bit of injury. But I mean, this guy was the talk of town 2 years ago, and all of a sudden you're ready to ship him off and make George Pickens your full number one here. I'm interested to see if they're going to make any moves here because the wide receivers have been quiet, even though we got a couple we're going to talk about here. But man, you're not kidding. You're sending them to the gutter. You're set. Oh, I feel so bad. If you thought you had bad quarterback problems in Pittsburgh, you better strap in, Deontay.
Pittsburgh's a very blue collar city even today. With their at least their fan base is very old school. They're very do right by us and we'll have your back forever. Don't have our back and we'll turn on you. The moment that I think Deontay Johnson was never going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler after last year was if you remember in that game against the Bengals when Jacob Brown was starting late in the year, Deontay Johnson just stood there on the side and didn't even block. And there was a fumble right in front of him, and he didn't even try to go after the ball. And I think from that moment forward, Pittsburgh fans were done. And he's kind of
Are you
like
sure that wasn't George Pickens? Because Pickens did the same exact thing.
100%. I'll make sure that I try to
Okay.
remember to put this on the Twitter.
At least Pickens did something similar too. So
it's George Pickens
coaching,
so.
But nonetheless,
he feels like a Walmart version of Jarvis Landry to me. And I know David hates Jarvis Landry to begin with just because he's a high volume receiver with like no yards after catch. It's everything's underneath.
slant boy.
Yeah, and that's great if that's what you need. But if you're looking for what I don't know what you would call Deontay, a middle of the range two is kind of the way high two maybe.
I think it's a high two. Like his route running is good. He's gotten a lot of praise for his route running and what he's able to do. I just don't know about his separation. And obviously he gets the yards, but he's not. He almost like I don't like saying it because I don't want people to think that they're comparable, but it's like almost that Julio Jones effect where it's yards and no touchdowns, nowhere close to the yards of Julio, but it's just all yards guy and just not scoring. So over the past couple of years, it's kind of been like that. I don't know. Maybe Dave Canales can get that offense humming down there in Carolina. We'll see a different Deontay Johnson paired up with Adam Thielen.
That's Adam the thing. Thielen. That's that offense in Carolina. God bless those fans because he is going to be looked at maybe as the number one. And for Bryce Young, in a year that feels very important to his development, that scares me. I really do think that we're just in for a really dark few years. It doesn't feel like anything's changing in Carolina. These trades with Brian Burns and Deontay, they actually kind of got a decent deal here, but they're overpaying for everybody. They're getting just trade molested. It's been terrible. It's been, I don't, what's the positive? Say something nice about Carolina right now.
They got Bojangles. Oh, the football team?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm still a Canes boy through and through.
Bring back different. Nah, you can't go to North Carolina and say that. I don't even know if they have Canes in North Carolina. I never heard about it until I went up to Ohio, ironically enough.
I didn't hear about it until I got to Ohio State, too. It's weird. And then all of a sudden, I feel like it's blowing up all over the country, rightfully so. Cane sauce, injected in my veins. That if that was something I could have every day, I would, and I'd be on my 600-pound life with not a care in the world. Like, hey, let's do the pod, Steven. Let's finish my second Caniac combo. No slaw extra toast. Sweet tea. No rice. See? You're ready. Okay, little ice.
That.
Little ice.
Oh, you need a little, but I like their ice. They got some good chewable ice, which is,
it's that soft
can be
ice.
A game changer. Yeah, dude, it's just melts in your mouth. Pause. We'll go on. We'll continue to talking about the wide receivers here. Is Calvin Ridley getting a bag, 4-year, $92 million here with Tennessee? But you also have Gabe Davis getting a little bit of a bag, right? I know he's on a 3-year. What's that number looking like for him?
I want to say it was 33, but maybe I made that up. I'll tell you in 2 seconds.
But we have Calvin Ridley now getting paired up here with D-Hop to help Will Levis out here a little bit. Then you got Gabe Davis going down and trying to help out there in Jacksonville with that smorgasbord of receivers and pass catchers that they have down there.
It was 39 for the record. I got thrown off because it's 13 per. That's another 3. Too many 3s in there. It's throwing me through a loop, Steven.
Damn, another loss by Buffalo as they are doing nothing but losing more people. And even I think we can keep it on the track. Didn't Mitch Morse, the starting center for Buffalo, also sign with Jacksonville?
Yeah, Mitch Morse is probably going to be the starting center now. And to be honest, I think that's one of my sneaky favorite moves of this entire offseason to this point.
Yeah.
This was trending Jacksonville and New England too. Calvin Ridley, that is. And it felt like out of nowhere, we had Tennessee coming out and just throwing a ton of money for a guy that I like. Calvin Ridley. Do I like him 4 by 92? No. Sorry.
Remember a couple years ago when Tennessee traded away their star receiver because they didn't want to pay him, and then they went and paid Calvin Ridley damn near the same contract on top of what they're paying DeAndre Hopkins?
Oh, that burns too, because I still think A.J. Brown has a better case than people want to admit for being like the top, at least top 3 receiver. I'd still go Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and probably even at this point still a Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, but he's right there.
No, he absolutely is. And it's hilarious just the downfall of Tennessee since then. They trade him. They just haven't really looked like the same team. Now you have Derrick Henry gone, Ryan Tannehill's gone. Like all of your stars or people that you build your team around are all gone. So it's starting from scratch, but you never know with what Tennessee is like. We already know they got Tajay Spears. They had signed Tony Pollard too. So they're loading up a lot for Will Levis. And I know we kind of harped on a little bit of what their offensive line and adding to that's looking like if it's going through the draft or free agency. So they're an interesting team with a new offensive coordinator as their coach. We always see how they spice things up and kind of come out a little bit harder than we're expecting. So maybe Tennessee is that team to keep your eye on heading into this year.
Now, I have a question for you just because I think that both these teams still probably don't have the receiver rooms that is going to be good enough to compete for anything. Would you rather have Calvin Ridley on this massive ticket, or would you rather have Gabe Davis as like a number 2 at 3 for 39?
Dude, give me the Gabe Davis contract over and over again. Calvin Ridley's 30. This is the number one thing that has been frustrating the hell out of me when reading up on this Calvin Ridley. Well, he has potential. He has this. Well, we can really see if he could flourish. He is 30 years old. This man is peaked. We know that he is not going to flourish, or maybe this is the year he gets it together. He's 30. If he would have gotten it together, we'd seen it by now. The mental aspect of this coming back from this season, yeah, he had a solid year, over 1,000. But there were it was ebbs and flows. And my God, when they were down, he was bad. When they were good, he looked awesome. But there was no healthy middle ground. Calvin Ridley, 30 years old. You got Gabe Davis, I want to say what? He 25, maybe turning 26 this year on a really cheap deal, and somebody who can stretch that field a little bit. We've seen what he's been able to do. Now, I'm not denying that Calvin Ridley's not talented. Calvin Ridley is very talented. But at one point, are you going to stop asking what his ceiling is on a 30-year-old receiver that we've seen the ceiling on?
Amari Cooper, we bring this up, I feel like every time we talk Calvin Ridley's age, because he's like the sneakiest old man of all time.
He is.
Amari Cooper is 6 months older than Calvin Ridley, and I think Amari Cooper's been in the league for 28 years.
Yeah, and like Calvin Ridley or Amari Cooper, give me Amari Cooper 8 times out of 10.
I think that I agree with you because, No, I know I agree with you. You know what you're getting out of Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is never going to be that like star wide receiver, but he's a guy you want in your locker room. Not like I don't know much about Calvin Ridley, but I know Amari Cooper is a good guy, a good teammate to have. He's quiet, he goes about his business, and he just produces. Year after year, he produces. Calvin Ridley, it's like you said, he's about to be 30, and we talk about him like he's going into his third or fourth year in the NFL.
I'm assuming you're on the Gabe Davis contract too.
Oh yeah, if they're not like I'm even thrilled there. Like Trevor Lawrence, this guy's throwing at Christian Kirk, who I like, but he's a slot receiver. He's not a number one, and now Gabe Davis is gonna have to be someone that I don't think he can be. He wasn't in Buffalo. He's a home run threat, but is he a guy that you're gonna be able to depend on 4, 5, 6 catches a game when you need him? I don't know. I really don't.
I just think if they actually get a true tight end, that Tennessee, that Jacksonville could cook something up. Because they got Evan Ingram, but they're playing him at wide receiver a lot of the times. But your boy, Zay Jones is still there. They got Christian Kirk. Now they got Gabe Davis. You got
They
Evan
signed
Ingram.
Devin Duvernay too, but you imagine
And
it's
Devin Duvernay.
probably for punts and all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but he's a speedster, right? Maybe they're switching it up a little bit, but it's getting to a point where this is such a do or die season for Trevor Lawrence right now.
Yeah, and I do think that even if things go really poorly, like what's the worst case scenario we see for Jacksonville next year? Being like a 8-9 team that misses the playoffs, like as a worst case. Yeah, but like I feel like the Jags fans, it's hard to quit a quarterback that going into the draft was being lauded as a generational talent, and it's hard to let that dream go even 4 or 5 years later. I could see them keep kicking the can down the road, maybe franchise tag him and say, you get 1 year to prove it. Because someone immediately, if he hit free agency, Trevor Lawrence would be the number 1 free agent immediately. Someone would take a massive chance.
Let's get into our 911 rapid fire. Before we do, we want to let you know that this 911 rapid fire section is brought to you by Abby Turner Creative, your one-stop shop marketing agency specializing in branding, high-end photography, fashion, and more, especially for our age where it feels like there's a college graduation, baby pictures, engagements, weddings, you name it, they're happening. Abby Turner Creative is the only way to go. Check her out for yourself at abbyturnerphoto.com. That's Abby, ABBEY, or on her Instagram at Sawdad and Sapphire. Again, abbyturnerphoto.com. I know you want to lead me into this one, but
Aaron Rodgers is seeking a trade to the White House? The Jets also traded for tackle Morgan Moses, but Steven, that nobody cares about that. We're talking about Robert Kennedy Jr. possibly asking Aaron Rodgers to be his VP.
It's not asking. It's definitely happened. Like they've had a picture together, like going on they went on like a mountain hike or something with some dogs. They've got some pictures together here. But how awesome would that be if you get, and we've heard it talk all week, so we're a little bit late to the game with this comparison, but you're 4 plays in, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. All right, guys, let's push it back. We're going to be so pumped for next year. And then he leaves to go run a political campaign as a running mate. That would be amazing. But of course, Aaron had to make sure that he was in the news since his spot at Pat McAfee's show got taken here a couple months ago. The dude's got to make sure he's being talked about in the midst of free agency. You can't talk football without speaking about me, Aaron Rodgers.
But Steven, can you help me out real quick? When is the election? Oh, November?
Like November?
Oh, okay. Steven, help me out here. I'm new to football. When is football season?
September. You can argue August with preseason.
Oh, cool. So when they're ramping up for these like political debates for the campaigns during two-a-days, during preseason, during the regular season, Aaron Rodgers would hypothetically do both? How does that make any sense at all? He talked about no distraction this year. He talked about playing 4 more years of football. Who knew when he said 4 more years, he was talking about the Oval Office?
Yes, he was. I know that comment made me sick, but it's Kevin Wildes on First Things First said it the best, that Aaron Rodgers is in that probably not era of his where every time there's something spoken, he's like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it, and then probably not. There's just a laundry list of things that he says that he'll do that he just doesn't do. And then he'll just like walk it back as if he never said that. He's like, "You guys are dumb. You really thought I was going to come back from this Achilles injury? You guys are dumb." It's like, no, dude.
You know what it's like is when you're at the bars with your buddies and you're like 4 or 5 beers in, and it's guys, we actually should take that trip together this year. Oh, we're for sure doing it. Yeah, and then you wake
dude,
up
the golf trip. Let's go to Kiwi.
Yeah, and you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh shit. Did I really say I was gonna do that? Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, sorry to be that guy. That's what it's like. So I don't know. Sorry, that was a lot of talking for Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't deserve it. But backup quarterbacks, that's when you get me feeling some type of way. I told you, this is the year of the backup quarterback. And this is kind of a game I want to think. Is it backup quarterback or are they? Joe Flacco this year, backup.
Backup, unfortunately. Hey, but if AR-15 keeps playing the way he was, he's going to get a lot of playing time.
Exactly. Jameis Winston, Browns, backup.
So done talking about this dude.
Oh, man, I kind of like Jameis, but we'll get to him in a second.
Dude, I am not... I've liked Jameis Winston, but the last few years, there's something mentally off with that dude.
Yeah, he's a unique
CTE.
cat.
But like,
I don't know how he has CTE. He doesn't play.
But trust me, he got a lot of playing time. He threw 30 interceptions in the season. You don't think he got at least one concussion trying to track someone down because you didn't want to give it away? But no, it's just
30 tackle opportunities.
He rambles like that local homeless crackhead outside of the gas station. Except he's obviously not that. He's a well put together millionaire who plays football. But that is his train of thought. It's just like watching the wheels try to turn when he's speaking, and listening to him talk just makes me miserable.
I loved his PMT interview. I won't lie to you.
That's what it is. I'm just like, dude, I can't even sit here and listen to you finish this sentence. It's miserable to listen to.
I was laughing that entire thing. The thing reason I wanted to bring those two up first is because they have almost identical deals. I don't know with like incentives and stuff, but we're just talking base salary. It's identical, $8.7 million for 1 year. I have a feeling I know why this happened, and I want your take on this. The Browns couldn't sign Joe Flacco again because we know how Cleveland fans are, and they would be clamoring for Joe Flacco the second Deshaun Watson looks like shit, probably in week 2. I don't feel like you have that same risk with Jameis. I don't think people are like, we need to see this guy right away. You're going to give Deshaun every opportunity he can to look like his pre-suspension, all this other bullshit self.
Pre-ejaculation, yes, I agree. The Jameis is not going to have the people clamoring, but it gives you you're way more comfortable going into the season than you were at this point last year, even though you're pretty comfortable. But when that inevitable quarterback change happened because of the injury, you're going to feel way more comfortable. So as long as Deshaun can stay on the field, you'll be fine. But Sammy Darnold, 1 year, $10 million, signing with the Minnesota Vikings. This was shortly after Kirk Cousins ended up leaving for the ATL. Are we talking backup here?
I don't know. I feel like with where they're at in the draft at 11 right now, they're going to have to give up a decent haul to go up and get their guy unless they're trying to take a chance that the 4th quarterback in the draft will be taken at 11. I could see this being one of those teams that avoids quarterback in the first round because they're not going to go all in this year. They're going to kind of take the slower rebuild approach. I could see them taking a day 2 quarterback, perhaps an early day 3 quarterback, and say,
that could also be Drake May for the record too. I know he's almost getting. I know you were talking about it too, and maybe he's going to have that Will Levis type deal where they kind of fall to him.
Yeah, and like even guys like Sam Howell at UNC fell like a rock in that year with Kenny Pickett and that awful quarterback class, but he fell, I think, to the 5th or 6th round when he preseason was another first round guy. And whether it's fair or not, we hear people do all the bullshit with Ohio State quarterbacks all the time. People have prejudices against schools and programs, and I could see Drake May falling, but that's another conversation. I kind of I fell into the weeds there with you, but I do think Darnold is going to have a good chance to start next year. And more or less, he has to lose the job, I think, to not start week 1.
We had some cap casualties here and a couple other cuts that we have actually coming out of the in-house Raiders fans home out in Las Vegas. We got Jimmy G as well as Hunter Renfrow getting the axe here. Followed up staying in the division with the Los Angeles Chargers cutting ties with Mike Williams, fresh off an ACL injury here.
You know, when you were growing up and everybody has that like friend group that was really tight, but then maybe somebody, not like there was a falling out, but they developed different interest in you and your friend group. So you're still friends, but you don't really hang out all that much anymore. You kind of wish them well. That's kind of how Hunter Renfrow is, where he's like a Raider for life. I'll always love him, but he really didn't fit with what they're doing. And there was just like
Scrawny
kind of
white dude.
Yeah, and it's just like it didn't feel like it was ever gonna work and get back to that level. So I'm wishing him well, and I think he's gonna do really well elsewhere where somebody might use him. Where Jimmy G, on the other hand, is that you're hammered at a party and you meet a guy that you're friends with all of a sudden, you're like, this guy's so cool. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, wait a minute, was that guy? That guy was a little strange. And then you hang out with him once and he's like, probably wearing Birkenstocks and he's talking about this like really
he's
cool.
got good weed.
That's probably true. But like, he's like, oh, I'm not really into sports. I like to spend my time doing other things. He's one of those guys, and then you're like, oh, this was a terrible idea to begin with.
Yeah.
This never was going to work. Yes. Jimmy G in Vegas was never going to work. People wanted it to because he was just like good-looking guy. He has the big old Vegas smile, but instead it failed.
And quarterback wins. Don't forget about those quarterback wins, Wally.
So true. So, good luck, but see ya. I don't need it anymore.
Jimmy G makes sense. Obviously, he's being a casualty here because the signing of Garner Minshew here earlier, as well as he got the rookie AOC. So now this is more clear than ever that they might be taking a shot here at quarterback in the draft. Hunter Renfrow may possibly have had one of the worst performance post a contract. Since 2000 or since 22. 87 targets with 61 receptions for 585 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was brutal. I mean, this guy was getting so much praise of just being able to cut people up in the routes here out of the slot, and seemingly disappeared right when Devontae came into the picture here. So I think that's a great move, especially with the cap number that he had, even though I think he only had 1 year left anyway. The Chargers, Mike Williams, it's unfortunate. I honestly thought this was going to be Keenan Allen, as Los Angeles is holding 4, now 3 of the top 12 biggest cap hits in the NFL. Mike Williams is going to be the 4th. He's younger, coming off an ACL injury. I'm very surprised to see him being the one that's going. But now I'm interested to see where Bosa's going to go, because after the reconstruction of Khalil Mack's contract, keeping him in Los Angeles, it's going to be Keenan Allen or Joey Bosa that are going to be cut next, in my opinion, and it's got to be Joey.
Jim Harbaugh is not messing around, and I know that some people were saying and
talking about holding a grudge. He's like, "Fuck you, Buckeye."
Yeah, I'll run with that narrative anyways, just because I hate him. But it just, people were speculating that he was going to come in and say, you know what you guys we're doing wasn't working, and I'm going to gut it. Like, I know this is a good team, but this team ain't a Super Bowl team, so I'm going to gut it and make my own. And it feels like this is more of the beginning of that than it is the end. And I agree with you. I think that both of those edges probably moved this offseason.
Gus Edwards, baby.
That's
the running backs. That's the running back signing that they have.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is back in Philadelphia after 1 season in Detroit. He signed a 3-year, $33 million deal. Maybe that was where the 3-year, $33 million deal popped into my brain. But anyways, the Eagles secondary was a laughing stock, Steven. This kind of feels like a good fit for Nickel and bringing in a little bit of life. And he's going to acclimate. He knows these people. He knows this defense. So I'm excited to see what he does with Vic Fangio.
After all of that shit talking for the past 10, 11 months, this dude is right back in Philadelphia. AKA, he is a true Eagle. He is back, instantly going to help, and Vic Fangio is going to find a way to utilize him very, very effectively and very quickly.
That was perfect to describe. He is Philadelphia.
He is Philadelphia. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe we'll see the ski mask in Philly, which, I mean, I feel like half their fans wear it because they're all fucking meth heads robbing people. Commanders bring back Bobby Wagner. Bring Bobby Wagner. He goes from Washington State to DC on a 1-year deal to link back up with his boy, Dan Quinn. If you don't know, Dan Quinn was his defensive coordinator that year that they won the Super Bowl in 2012. I want to say Bobby Wagner was like a rookie or maybe he was a second-year guy. Regardless, they link back up. And now the Commanders got a little bit of veteran leadership on that side of the ball.
I'm intrigued. I think it's a compelling linebacker core now because they didn't just bring in Bobby Wagner this last week. They brought in Frankie Louvu as well. And all of a sudden, that's kind of, you remember what the Bears did a couple years ago where
they signed a safety too, didn't they? They've been making some moves.
Dude, Tennessee and Washington have been dominating free agency, not necessarily like in a good way, just like the dominating the talking points. Everybody, even people they're not signing, it seems like the Titans and Commanders are in on everybody. But it's a fun linebacking group. I still hate the offense and everything it stands for, though. But I guess you got to take the small wins.
Well, now they're definitely going to be locked in and looking for a quarterback because they actually had traded Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks. So I thought that was a really good talking point. I want to say it was Sam Howell, a fourth and a sixth, and then Washington was able to receive a third and a fifth. I want to say, if I'm basing that based off memory.
Yeah, so more or less it was like you're switching 20 picks in the third and fourth round, and then you're switching 20 picks in the fifth and sixth. So it's a very cheap deal. It's a good, I guess, way to bring in a backup that, if Geno struggles this year, maybe you see Sam Howell out west a little bit.
I loved Sam Howell, dude. I understand the hate. I understand the interceptions, and I understand holding on to the ball long enough. Where have you ever seen a guy that we've talked about turning the ball over this much? He holds on to the ball way too much, yet have a barely a sub 4,000 years his first year as a starter. Get this dude some respect. I'm just saying. I like Sam Howell. I think he's the bright side of UNC quarterbacks as of recent.
I know that people have mixed opinions on Mina Kimes, but she's really smart. And she had a comment this last week, at least, that stuck out to me, talking about how there are pretty pick privilege. And by that, if you pick a quarterback in like the first round, there's like an extra bit of patience teams have with a player where Sam Howell, because he was drafted so late, it feels almost like easier to say, we're done with you, even after a competent year. Where if that year happened and Sam Howell's a first-round pick, what are we talking about? We're talking about a guy that you're fired up for this next year in Washington. There's hope. And instead, it's the turnovers. There's nothing good about this. It's just a Washington quarterback. So I kind of like it for Seattle. It's a fun backup to have, at least.
No, I like it a lot. And right before we started recording today, we got DJ Reader signing with Detroit on a 2-year, $27.25 million deal, and Eric Armstead signing a 3-year, up to $51 million deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I feel has been in our mouths a lot on this podcast here. What are your thoughts about these last two signings to go over?
If DJ Reader didn't have torn quads for the second time in inside 5 years, this would have been a big number. Instead, it feels like Detroit, you take a gamble on a guy at this age coming back from a significant injury, but if you were right and he's still going to play at that level, this is a steal. And the Bengals are paying Sheldon Rankins basically the same contract. I love this for Detroit, and doesn't it just feel like he fits in with Dan Campbell and what they're trying to do? I love that. And then I know you're all over Jacksonville's offseason, and Eric Armstead's probably my favorite move they've made. San Francisco really wanted him back.
Well, you're adding DJ Reader to a rush defense that ended up finishing second best in yards allowed at 88.8 yards, only falling behind the Chicago Bears. So something about the NFC North has you stopping the run. But you kind of led me into this, is the Eric Armstead deal is just one of many, I think, that Jacksonville has just nailed this offseason. In my opinion, which I don't know if I'm sure we'll have other episodes to talk about it, I think Jacksonville has had the best free agency period. If that is a combination of outside talent that they're bringing in as well as retaining their talent. You're bringing a Mitch Morse to be your starting center. You lock up Ezra Cleveland, who you got halfway through the year from Minnesota. I want to say that they locked up another guard as well, or restructure where they have the middle of their offensive line here. And then you're going to add a Gabe Davis, a wide receiver, for a way cheaper, way younger. Arguably, we'll see if it can be a more productive wide receiver than Calvin Ridley has been. And then you're going to add an Eric Armstead to a defense that had Josh Allen put up one of his best years, if not his best career year in Jacksonville. You know, just also mixed up with that number 1 pick here from a couple years ago. That D-line all of a sudden it's the year of the D-line. It's the free agency year of the D-line that we've been seeing. If it's the combination of what they're doing out there in Las Vegas, you got lines like this. You got DJ Reader being added to that line with Aiden Hutchinson. Jesus Christ. It's so funny how right when it's the offseason, these names are just not fresh in my mind anymore.
One of my favorite things about sports, and the reason why I think that so many of us are sports fans, is because of the unpredictability, and it's because sports like football are constantly evolving. They're constantly changing. And you brought up the defensive line. It's like in hockey, there's like these runs of you want to be fast teams win the cup. Then it gets nasty. Let's just be big and out bully everybody. And in hockey or in football right now, people are almost taking that Howie Roseman approach, and they want to build from the inside. And then all of a sudden what happens in 5 years is you're going to have some team have 3 superstar wide receivers or something like that, and it's going to be back to the speed game. But I love it right now. These big guys are getting paid, and I mean, God, I'm with you. That's a good offseason, Steven. I felt like they're leaving a lot on the plate when you have Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback, and this is the receiving core you're throwing out there. In what feels like, you brought it up, it's like a make or break year. I just wish they did more to give him more.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, wide receivers really haven't been coming off the board right now. I want to say there's a couple others that are out there as well. And it's around that time where trading is a little bit. We're also in that sweet area of pre and post June 1 cuts, because the dead money, the cap saving is going to be different pre and post that June 1st. So that's these next few months. It's so hard. That's why we don't do predictions right now. We'd be way off, because right now these teams are looking way different on paper than what they're going to look like even before June, just a couple months here in May. So I love it.
Yeah.
Last
thing. Sorry, I'm an idiot.
I thought I had it. I thought it was perfect. No, that's on me.
It's not on you. I was just going to say, a guy like Curtis Samuel, a guy like Marquise Brown, like something fast there too. I just think that could give them a little something else. But Steven, that felt like there was a lot of energy in that wrap us up, and I blew it. So please, I'm going to step back. You send us in.
And with that, will bring us to another episode of Lost of Down. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Lost of Down, and retweet us on Twitter /X_Lost. Remember, this episode is brought to you by the Bruiser Nation Podcast Network, a division of Snapmere Productions, as well as Abby Turner Creative, your one-stop shop marketing agency, abbyturnerphoto.com. Follow her on Instagram at Sawdad and Sapphire. I saw this tweet the other day, and I think that it would be so funny. I've never seen it, and they made it seem like it was a yearly tweet. How funny would it be if we never knew about free agency and we didn't know who signed where until week 1 and they strolled out?
If there wasn't so much
Imagine the bets. Imagine the bets that you could, which there's a loophole system, I'm sure, that they'd be really cracking down. But just imagine.
Do it like the NBA or MLB, like for the All-Star game, and do like a player introduction one at a time. Start like calling people out. But imagine in Vegas, you're sitting there like, oh God, what are we doing? And first name they call out is freaking Christian Wilkins. Like, I'd be just.
But then you got like those Josh Jacobs haters. Like, wait, Zamir White, where's Josh?
Yeah.
They're like,
or all of a sudden,
he's on the Packers now.
This is the year we got a quarterback, guys. I can feel it in my bones. Gardner Minshew, and I'm like,
dude, I'm not upset about that. Give me Gardner, baby.
One of these days, I wanna go all in. I feel like everybody gets to go all in like once every 5-10 years, and we just don't. I guess the closest we did was a couple of years ago, and every time we go all in, it's one of these like reject wide receivers from Pittsburgh, and they end up in like jail or like on CT ESPN. Like I don't need it anymore.
seems like wildly specific. But one last thing too before we go, Devin White signing a 1-year deal here with the Philadelphia Eagles. So another stellar linebacker back ending up there. We know that he's kind of towards that tip. Was it Devin White? Wait, hold up. Devin White got cut?
See, the problem is that like Tampa Bay this last year thought that he freelanced too much and that he was kind of just out there doing his own thing. Maybe they're
I thought it was Levante David that they cut, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I was like, wait, Devin White, the 26-year-old linebacker who just won you a Super Bowl, and you were creaming about this dude a year and a half ago?
Yeah, he was an All-Pro a couple years ago, and yeah, they re-signed Levante David, I want to say, for a 1-year, $10 million deal about 3 or 4 days ago. So he's going to be another one of those Bucks for life. And yeah, Devin White, there's upside, but again, people are worried that he freelances and maybe he's not the most team player. That's going off hearsay of people that know more than us, but that's the only thing I can think of.
Other than that, we got bracketology on Sunday.
Yes, we do. And last thing I have, and I'll leave you guys with this. Did you happen to see the rumblings in Cincinnati Bengals Twitter yesterday?
Oh my God, let's get it.
I know that's great for you too. You're like, get him out of my division.
Get him in the fuck out.
For the people that don't know what I'm talking about, there are rumblings that the Bengals could be interested in a trade with Minnesota to send T. Higgins and a couple first-round picks for Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson with Jamar Chase, with Joe Burrow, reuniting from that astonishingly good 2019 LSU team. I literally, that's a video game offense. That is so much fun. You remember when Ocho Cinco and T.O. played on the Bengals for a year? The hype going into that, and they were both old?
Yeah.
Imagine at this point. Yeah, they're 25.
Dude. Yeah. It doesn't matter if their defense couldn't stop. Like, they're scoring 70 points a game. Like, what the Dolphins did to Denver this past year would be every single game.
It'd be so fun. They might not stop teams, but, you don't need that.
No one. I dare you to stop us.
And I do. I guess I'm a Lou Amarumo truther, so I do think they're going to figure it out this year. I think last year was an anomaly, but it'd be so fun to get Justin Jefferson in Cincinnati. I am actively rooting for that to happen.
Why not? Like, we were literally talking about it when I was out to lunch at work. It's like, dude, Tyler Boyd in a first round, or T. Higgins in a first round pick, send it. And I literally looked down. And it's like, oh, the Bengals just rejected a Tyler or T. Higgins in 2 first rounds for JJ. Interesting.
See, and if that's true, you can't give up probably more than that. But two first and T. Higgins, that's a good offer.
Okay, think about it. Say no, I'll give you 3. I'll go up to 4. What's the worst case scenario? I'll give rid of 4. That's millions of dollars that I'm freeing up that I'm not using on a first round draft pick that I'm able to inevitably pay JJ. I'm inevitably being able to pay Jamar Chase. I'm just saying, why go the LA Rams approach? They're not doing too bad.
My push back to that, well, first of all, it's just so not what the Bengals do historically. Duke Tobin and Katie Blackburn, that's like anti-Cincinnati. Look at everything they do. My friend Alex Pesley loves to bring it up. 3rd-tier free agents, very low value, like second contracts. They don't, if you're like our age, they take you around the shed, treat you like old Yeller, you never come back. I think that it would be fun for 2 just because it's aggressive for them. I just don't see more. But wide receivers nowadays, you find there's so many good ones in every draft. To go more than 2 first just feels like you're trying to make something special happen when you could probably just draft a couple really good wide receivers and replace T.
Not like JJ.
Probably not, but I want it to happen, Steven. I'm rooting for it.
Happy Patty's Day, everyone. Go get shit-faced and have your teeth turn green.
Happy St. Patty's Day and OH. Hopefully that they're still alive when you guys are listening to this.